This episode was created with the support of Free FM, Hamilton, New Zealand's community access media organisation. Visit us at freefm.org.nz.
Hello and welcome to another episode of ReThinking Mental Wellbeing. This is our community podcast where we can talk about everything related to depression and anxiety. So my name is Andre and I want to thank you for being with me over the next half an hour as we share the space of lived experience where we can talk about how to live the best version of our authentic life. So, if you're ready, then I'm ready. Welcome to the podcast. Hey, thanks for joining me today. Today is actually the first ever episode for Rethinking Mental Wellbeing, so thanks for being here for the very first time. This is an exciting time. It's a long time coming. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a number of years. I think the first thing I want to do is go over how I want this to work for you. This is our community podcast, but this is your podcast. This is a space where you and I sit together to talk about how to live out our authentic life. That I'm on the same journey as you. The only difference is that I'm at the other end of the microphone. So I'm traveling the same path as you, on the same journey as you. But this podcast is for you. So with all of these episodes that we're going to do, I don't want this to be academic in nature. In other words, I don't want you to have to feel that you have to learn everything that we're talking about here. But it is taking away the bits and pieces of the information that we talk about that resonate with you. The bits that you find useful and the bits that make you go, now I understand how that piece fits into my world. So what we're talking about here is changing mindsets, changing belief systems. It's about learning who we are and how we can apply what we've learnt into our world, into our life, that fits around our lifestyle. So everything I talk about, I want you to wait a bit. And the bits that filter down through from your intellect into, essentially your soul and what we call awareness, and then is translated through your insight. So in other words, to uncomplicate that, every time you have a clarity moment or a aha moment, that is your insight and awareness kicking in to teach you something that you need to learn at this moment in time. It's not uncommon for people to attend the workshops 2, 3, 4, sometimes 7, 8, 9 times. But every time they come in, they learn something new. They get some new piece of information out of it that they didn't get before. A comment I get quite often, Andre, I don't remember you saying that in the last session. Did you say that last time? I don't remember you saying that. I did. You just didn't need to hear that at that moment in time. Now, for some reason, you do. That's the bit you take away with you. Hope that makes sense. We're going to start this topic on stress, and we're starting here because I'm pretty sure if you're listening to this, you've got some experience with stress. You've got some exposure and you've had stress at some point in your life. So we can all relate to stress, hence why we're going to start on this topic. But in particular, we're going to talk about what stress is. We're going to talk about why we need stress, what makes stress unhealthy, how to deal with stress, both in real time and as lifestyle tools. And then we're going to get rid of some of these myths that have been floating around about stress. We're going to start this off by asking some more questions. In particular, we're going to ask, why do we need to have this thing called stress? What benefit and purpose does it serve? How does it serve us in today's world? And how can we leverage real-time tools and lifestyle changes to minimize the negative effects of stress? So the very first thing we need to know, from a biological perspective, stress is designed for a purpose, and its purpose is to get us to move. So there's a reason why we need to feel stress. That stress is a biological mechanism that we have to get us to move. And we will either move towards something or we will move away from something. And in particular, if something is perceived by us as a threat to our survival, or if it's something that we have to lean into and grow with, which I'm going to talk about in next week's session. So, the first thing we've learned, stress is a natural human response. It is a process, and it's designed to address challenges and threats that we've identified in our life. So we can't do without stress. This is a really important point to make. So at its core, it prepares you for action. It prepares you for movement. It gets you to do something. Let's get rid of one of the myths about stress. You may have heard people saying, stress is bad. Stress makes you sick. Stress is unhealthy. And you need to find ways to get rid of stress out of your life. Kind of half right. These are what are called half-truths. They're not entirely correct. In fact, if you really think about it, it's quite misleading because it gives the indication and the idea that all stress is bad, which it's not. So let's clear up and get rid of this assumption. In order to do that, we're going to go back a few years. But in particular, we're going to go back to sort of pre-agricultural era, pre-industrial revolution. So, round about circa 10,000 years ago. Back to our ancestors' way of life and our ancestors' lifestyle. And we need to do this so we can talk about why, as human beings, we need to feel stress in these situations. From an evolutionary point of view, we've really got the short end of the stick when it comes to making sure as a species we're able to survive, but in particular survive from an attack. Because our purpose as human beings, contrary to belief, is not happiness, although we will talk about happiness in a future episode, but our whole purpose, our primary purpose, is to survive, to be able to pass our genes on to the next generation. We can't really do that if we're not surviving very well. We don't have thick skin. We can't run exceptionally fast comparative to other animals. We're not poisonous. We don't have sharp teeth. So, our biology hasn't really done us a lot of favors there. But we do need to have something that ensures both our safety and our survival in case of an attack. So you may have heard of this scenario before, but I want you to just imagine for a minute that you're with a group of people back in those times and you're just chilling out. You're connecting, you're bonding with each other, you're enjoying each other's company. Just imagine that the scene that you're in is perfect. So maybe you're outside looking at nature. Maybe there's no light pollution in the sky, so you can see all the stars and the Milky Way really clear. Maybe the temperature is perfect. You get the idea. You're in no stress. Everything is perfect for you. And then someone sounds the alarm that there's a tiger that is going to attack. In the face of this potential threat, there's a whole lot of things that happen within your body because your focus shifts from where it was before to that perfect, connective, safe place that you were to a new priority shift, and that is to survive. And now because your focus is on survival, all that stuff that you enjoyed when you're with your group now kind of fades away. And it fades away in the chaos of this new focus point. And that focus point is to survive. It's no longer about connection. It's no longer about feeling safe. Your priorities have shifted considerably thanks to the tiger. So there are internal changes that happen within your body. These all happen within 1/25th of a second. So really, really quick. So there's no warm-up. There's no preparation. There's no taking your time. There's no stretching it out before you battle it out. You are, within this time frame, biologically ready for battle. So what happens within this time frame? Well, I can tell you what doesn't happen. We don't develop thick armor-plated skin. Sharp teeth don't suddenly protrude from your mouth, dripping with venom as, an electric force field wraps itself around you to protect you. But there are things that happen within you. And one of the first things that happens, well, actually, there's a few things that happen before this one, but for the sake of this episode, I don't want to geek out on you, so we'll start here. Is that your heartbeat gets quicker. Your heartbeat speeds up. It gets rapid and it gets fast. And the purpose of this is to pump more blood to focus on two main organs within your body, your arms and your legs. So why is it that your blood has to pump oxygenated blood to two main organs? Why is this shift happening within your body? You probably already guessed it. You may have heard of this term before. But your body is preparing you for a state that we call the fight, flight, and freeze response. This physiological state is for the purpose and focus of survival. So this blood is pumping through your body into your arms, into your legs, so you can fight, or you can run. So I've said this a few times, so I'm hoping it starts to make sense, but your priorities have shifted and your focus point is now getting ready for battle. Everything in your body is starting to refocus and reprioritize itself. The other thing that happens is that your breathing increases. Your breathing gets rapid. And now you're breathing often with short breaths. We're going to talk about breathing in future episodes, but just know for now, your breathing starts to get shallow and quicker. There are chemicals that surge through your body that get released. One of these chemicals is called adrenaline. You've all heard of adrenaline before. So think of a child trapped under a car and the mother comes screaming out of the house. And you've probably heard stories about the mother kind of picking up the back end of the car and getting the baby out. She wouldn't be able to do that normally, but she can do that because adrenaline is surging through her body. She's going to feel that the next day though. She's going to have torn ligaments, pulled muscles. She's going to be sore. But at that moment in time, adrenaline takes over and gets her to lean into and respond to the thing that she needs to respond to. And adrenaline's job is to give you energy to get you moving. It's to get you moving either towards a threat or away from the threat. So this adrenaline is like a sprinkler system within your body. So imagine now that your internal system is full of adrenaline for the purpose of survival. You also have adrenaline that's created in the brain. We call this epinephrine. So, when I give you a name like that, I don't want you to have to feel you have to learn the name, by the way. I want you to know that there is a name for it and there's a process behind it. But this epinephrine, it's essentially adrenaline created in the brain, is like a sprinkler system, but in the brain. So imagine now you're in this fight or flight state, and part of that is you have adrenaline surging through your body like a sprinkler system, and you have adrenaline surging through your brain like a sprinkler system. You also have cortisol, and you've probably heard of cortisol before. Cortisol releases energy. It plays a part in slowing digestion, and it maintains blood pressure and a few other things as well. There are things in your body that slow down. And the reason why activities in your body slow down is because when you're focused on survival, your body doesn't want to spend energy and resources doing something it doesn't have to do, because its focus is to get more energy into the things that are important at this moment in time, your arms or your legs. So it's going to shut down some inner workings in your body, some resources, for the purpose of redirecting energy to the more important things that it needs to redirect the focus on. And one of these things that slows down or is affected by this fight or flight response is your digestive system. Because you're not going to want to say to the tiger, you know what? Hey dude, just stop there. I need to finish. I've just eaten, man, so I need to finish this. And then when I finish digesting it, then you're more than welcome to come at me. But let me finish this first. So instinctively, and don't forget, all this happens within 1/25th of a second. Your body starts to shut down non-essential workings. And one of these is your digestive system. Another thing that slows down considerably is the area of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. So if you put your thumb on your forehead, it's sort of the part of the brain that's just behind that forehead. This is responsible for things like your executive functioning, for your planning, for our clever stuff that makes us human, for problem solving, for controlling inhibitions and reactions and other bits and pieces. But in the case of danger, often you don't really want to think your way out of that. You don't want to plan your way out. If this is an immediate threat, like in this case, a tiger, you're not going to want to say to the tiger, just again, stop there. I need to plan out the best way or the quickest way I can get out of this. And then when I've done that, then come at me. You're not going to want to do that. So again, your body is shifting energy resources from having to think your way out to just getting the hell out very quickly, very fast. Your pupils dilate, and they dilate, in other words, they get bigger to allow more light in, so you can see a little bit clearer or better or in more detail in order to hyperfocus on the threat. And when we hyperfocus on the threat, everything else that we were focusing on before the tigers showed up now kind of fades into the background. Your biology, your fight or flight response system is wanting you to fine-tune your focus on the threat, because that's the thing that takes priority at this moment in time. You know, that environment you were in before, the stars, the perfect atmosphere, the people you were with, connections and bonding with people, that's all gone by the wayside now. Because now you may notice that your world is looking a lot different now than it did before the tiger came on the scene. So now you are equipped better to either fight the tiger or run from the tiger, or you freeze. Whatever one of these is going to work for you. So let's pretend now that you've battled the tiger, so you've run from it. But either way, you've survived and there's no more threat anymore. So what happens after this battle when we have used a lot of energy and a lot of resources defending ourselves, because it really is very energy taxing? We now have to put ourselves into a state of recovery, a state of healing, to be able to recover the energy lost and the energy consumed by being in this fight or flight state. So we consumed energy, we expended energy, we spent energy. Now your biology is wanting to get that energy back and replenish what was lost. This recovery state that is essential, so it's not optional, by the way, it's essential, is what we call rest and digest, or rest and recover. And we have to do this for several reasons. One, so we can get ready for the next encounter. Two, we have to move into the state to recover from the energy lost. We need to move into the state so we can continue to connect, to bond, to reunite, and to feel safe again. Because in this state of rest and recover, this is where your body heals. Your heart rate slows, your breathing gets deeper, which is the correct way of breathing, allowing more oxygenated blood to flow back into your internal system again, to get you back into a place of what we call homeostasis or balance. Your blood pressure lowers. The state of rest and recover removes toxin buildup in your system. You feel calmer, you feel more relaxed. It increases your immune system, and there's so many more things that this state does. This rest and recover state is where we are meant to spend a lot more time than what we do. We are designed to have an environment of safety and to feel secure in that safe place. So this is how our biology works. This is our design as a human being, and this is essential for well-being. Now fast forward a few years to our modern day life, to life as you know it right now. But before we dive into the stress of modern life, we have to, understand two things. First of all, our DNA, our genetic design as a human being, has not had enough time to adapt to this ever-changing, fast-paced world that we live in today. There's a guy by the name of Stephen Allardy. Some of you may have heard of him before. He's the Associate Professor of Clinical Psychology at the University of Kansas. He spent the last few decades researching the link between depression from a psychosocial model and our ancestors' way of life. In fact, he's developed a program called Therapeutic Lifestyle Change, or TLC for short. This is one of his quotes. "There is a profound mismatch between the genes that we carry and the world that we find ourselves in. We were never designed for the sedentary, indoor, socially isolated, fast food-laden, sleep-deprived, frenzied pace of modern life. And you combine this with the fact that change in society has been so fast, so quick, so rapid, that in the last 10 years we've changed so much that it previously took 100 years for the same amount of change to occur. We are growing rapidly, and our biology, our DNA, and our genes cannot keep up with this fast-paced changes that we are witnessing and is occurring in today's world. In ancestral psychology, there's a phrase that says, we are hunter-gatherers dressed in modern-day clothes. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, your senses, what you see, touch, hear, smell, and taste, is constantly scanning your environment. In fact, it's scanning two environments. Your senses are scanning your internal environment, so what's going on within your body, and your external environment, what is going on in the outside world, to answer and focus on one question. And that question is, are you safe? In fact, one of the definitions of stress is when your inner world is out of balance with your outer world. In other words, there's an imbalance and you're out of harmony between the two worlds. We have the potential of being overwhelmed internally, and I'm talking about, things like our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, the things we worry about, overthinking, and then we're overwhelmed by our external environment. And so your senses can feel that there's an onslaught of environmental factors that are sending you the message that your environment is unsafe. The mechanism that saves you from a pending tiger attack is the same mechanism that you can turn on by just thinking about the past or the future. It's the same mechanism when you are looking over the edge of a tall building, and it's the same mechanism that is turned on when you're riding the roller coaster or attending a social event or public speaking. So this fight or flight response is a normal response to a situation that is perceived as a threat to us. But if you also notice, some of these things that I mentioned before are not actually threatening us. So one of these words is not like the other, and that word is perception. Because when your survival mechanism kicks in, when your fight or flight kicks in, when your mind is trying the best it can to keep you safe by telling your nervous system and your body that everything is harmful and dangerous, what it's doing is it's misreading and misinterpreting your environment, both internally and externally, as being a threat to your safety. And it gives you false cues and false messages. And if this is done over a long period of time, this now costs us our quality of life. One of our main jobs as a human being is to understand what our needs are and how to get them met in a healthy way. We do a whole episode on getting your needs met, so we're going to leave that topic for a bit later on. But one of these needs is a need to connect, to bond with other people. But you can't do that really well if you're in a constant state of fight or flight, because connecting best happens when you're feeling safe. So what does this mean? It means that we are designed as a human being from a biological and evolutionary point of view to make our life a lot more simple than what it is, to make life less overwhelming than what it is. It is understanding that learning to tolerate ongoing stress all the time or learning to put up with it is not the same as learning to adapt to it. So in the world that we live in today, we just can't keep up with the constant assault of changes because genetically it takes hundreds, if not thousands of years to adapt. But the problem is the goalposts are forever moving and forever changing. These days, not everybody has to face actual tigers in their daily life. These days, our metaphorical tigers are all the things that cause us overwhelm and ongoing stress. And our brain and our body find it hard to sort out the difference between an actual threat to our survival and a perceived one. The amount of data, the amount of onslaught of information that the average person has on a daily basis, and I want to stress is average, so it may be different for you, is the equivalent of someone handing you 127 newspapers full of information, full of data that you have to go through every day. That's the equivalent of about 30 million bits of information, thrown at you throughout that day. Our genetic design as a human being means that we cannot deal with that much stimulation, and then we get a sense of overwhelm as a result. So think of overwhelm as being an overflow. Too much information or too much something for you to be able to handle. Overwhelm is your emotional overflow. Your brain can only handle consciously, not unconsciously, that's a whole different story, but consciously it can only handle between 120 to 180 bits of information at once. And to put that in context, that's about the same as two people talking to you at the same time. So your brain will misinterpret that overwhelm and will reinterpret it as you are unsafe. And it will kickstart the only thing that it has at its disposal to keep you safe. So in the big scheme of life, your brain is trying to look out for you and keep you safe. It's like a overprotective parent. Its intentions are good. It's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to look out for you. It's trying to protect you from harm. But it misreads your environment as not just unsafe, but life-threatening. And even in situations where the stress is not actually happening, but imagined, then all of these symptoms that happen within your fight or flight response kick in and are reactivated simply by what we think about. So this fight or flight response is activated way more often than it needs to actually be. And it comes at the cost of being in our state of rest and digest, which we prefer to be in. We have so many things bidding for our attention. Things like social media, advertising, even expectations or demands placed on us, even our view of ourselves, our view of the world, and the way we compare them, the way we interpret the past as predictions of the future, and a million other things that cause us stress. These days, this overwhelm, this state of fight or flight that we've been talking about, may go under a different name, but a familiar name to you. These days, we call this anxiety. So what this means is that our environment and the world that we find ourselves in is a mismatch for the world that our biology is designed to live in. But the good news is that there's options. There's ways to change the messages that we are receiving to find a life more in harmony with who we are. A life that adjusts to our flow and pace rather than trying to keep up with the chaotic, frantic speed of what anxiety dictates. We have options to get our needs met, and we have options to find our calmer places and our more peaceful moments. So that's all I've got for this episode. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you've got something useful from this discussion. And if you have any questions you would like us to discuss on future episodes, then please email me at rethinkingmentalwellbeing@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. So until then, go well, go in peace, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
This Free FM podcast was brought to you with support from New Zealand On Air.